Thank you so much, Bettina, for all of your pro tips. There's so much there that we can take away straight into our running. As we mentioned, for many decades, we've been collecting feedback from runners. What I'd like to do now is pass you across to John, our local sports scientist, to have a look at how as runners we can overcome the top 5 most common running challenges and how we're also doing that with technology.
Thanks, Ross. So over the past 40 years, Polar have fielded thousands of questions and logged countless hours from runners training and racing across the globe. The top 5 running challenges that we've continued to respond to are: how can we set up a safe and effective training program? How can we get started with heart rate zones? So how can heart rate training help me? How can I get started with pace zones? How can I get the most out of a training session and ensure that the training session meets the goals that I have set forth in the training plan? And how can I manage my training load to avoid or minimize the risk of injury and illness? What we're going to do now over the next couple of minutes is take you through how we can solve these issues. So firstly, how do we create a unique running program that's suitable for you? Polar's online web service and mobile app, Polar Flow, is your window into your training, activity, sleep, and recovery data. You're able to create a free running program for events ranging from 5, 10, 21 to 42K. Now, these programs have been developed by Polar's running coaches and sports scientists and are built to be customized to match your specific starting point. You simply input your personal stats, how many days you plan to train, select your current estimated fitness level from the list, and importantly, your start date for the program and your target race date, and the program will be generated consisting of a base, build, and taper phases that Benita has so brilliantly covered earlier, so you can start to progress safely and effectively. Whether you have a Polar device or not, these programs are free to generate within the Polar Flow web service. Okay, fantastic. So we have a program ready to go. Now, a common question next would be, how could I use heart rate training to improve the effectiveness of the program? Well, the first thing we must do is calculate or estimate your maximum heart rate. And we can do this most accurately with a maximal test to exhaustion, not recommended when you first start your program. So we use the common formula of 220 minus your current age. And this number would represent your maximum heart rate, from which we can calculate your heart rate zones. Now, this is done automatically if you have a Polar watch once you add in your date of birth. So we can see that these heart rate zones are anchored to your unique maximum heart rate number. Now, there are various formulas for predicting your maximum heart rate. 220 minus your age is a good starting point, but we would like to be a little bit more accurate than that. And the beauty of having a Polar watch with best in market accuracy heart rate measurement technology is anytime you reach your new maximum heart rate in any training session, your maximum heart rate number and heart rate zones will be updated automatically. Now, we've heard Benita mention that it's critical that you execute your training plan based on the zones that are unique to you and your current fitness level and not someone else's program. And here we can see the heart rate zones for a person of 43 years of age. And simply, the zones are based on percentages of the maximum heart rate. So 50 to 60% of the maximum heart rate is zone 1, 60 to 70% is zone 2, and so on and so forth. We also have a subjective descriptor of what you should feel like when you're conducting or training in these heart rate zones. So, for example, training in heart rate zone 1 should feel easy, fun, you could do it all day. And conversely, training in heart rate zone 5, 90 to 100%, should feel completely unsustainable. You would not be able to do it for very long at all. You would not be able to talk to anyone while you're doing it. And these zones are important because spending time different intensities or different heart rate zones helps to develop different physiological systems within the body. For example, the base phase of your program, the goal would be to develop the oxidative energy pathway or the aerobic energy system. And we do that by spending time in zones 1, 2, and 3. So the zones are ways of controlling your intensity such that you are developing the correct energy pathways within the body according to your program to help you maximize the effectiveness of the program. So if you do have a Polar watch, your running program will be automatically synced to your watch and the sessions will be there for you to start, and you will be guided through the sessions on the fly in that the watch will give you the target heart rate zone and therefore pace. And not only that, it will prompt you when you fall outside of the target heart rate zone. So if your heart rate is starting to get too high, perhaps you're on an easy run in zones 1 to 2 and your heart rate is creeping up into zone 3, you will receive an audible beep from your watch prompting you to slow your pace and bring your intensity down into the correct zone. We can also assign pace and speed zones in much the same way that we assigned the heart rate zones. But To improve the accuracy of these zones, considering that we did use a prediction equation to assign the maximum heart rate, within your Polar Running Watch there is a built-in guided running performance test, which once complete will return a VO2 max score, an actual maximum heart rate score from which your heart rate zones will be updated automatically, and also speed and pace zones. And this will allow you to improve the accuracy and therefore effectiveness of your heart rate and pace guided training sessions. And now we're up and running with the program. To accurate heart rate and pace zones, ensuring that we're training effectively towards the specific goals of the current phase of the program. We can also use these zones to monitor the progress of your training, in that you can see as your running performance improves, at a glance on your watch, you will see a gradual increase over time in your running pace for any given heart rate. You will also receive feedback and predicted race times based on your training session data collected from your Polar Running Watch, allowing you to really get a handle on your achievable running paces for various distances and events. I do hope that this information has answered some questions or at least cleared up some confusion for you on how technology can be an addition to your training program. Of course, consistent training is the cake, by and large. We might think of this just as the icing or the sprinkles on the cake. If you do have any questions, please be in touch with myself or anyone from the Polar team. Thank you very much for having me and listening to me.